Fields of Mistria is one of the newest farming sim games that is currently available for early access through Steam. I have put together 30 tips and tricks that are great for early gameplay during Fields of Mistria, and things that I wish I had known even within the first week of the game. Tip number 1 relates to all of the tools within the game, and the fact that you actually do not begin with every tool that you need in Fields of Mistria. The first tool that you actually begin with is your sword, which doubles as a scythe, so you don't have to purchase one or make one separately. Your neighbor Celine will also come over and gift you a hoe so you can begin tilling your land. Your other neighbor Hayden will also come over to gift you a watering can, so on your first day you can begin farming. On day 2, Island will come visit your farm and gift you a worn axe so you can begin chopping down trees and other lumber. And on day 2, there will be a special quest on the board where you will have to meet with one of the town's blacksmiths, Ulrich, in order to get a worn pickaxe. On day 4, you will also receive a special quest from Luke so you can get the worn net. There will be a brief cutscene with him at the end, and you will be gifted a net, so that is when you could begin catching all the different bugs within the town. Now for the 2 other tools within the game, there is both the fishing rod as well as the shovel. I recommend purchasing the fishing rod rather than crafting it, as it is a good way to make early game money. For the shovel, I recommend waiting until you can craft it because you only really need it to expand your farmland. Tip number 2 is to try to hang on to at least one of every item, as there will be a lot of quests within the game. Quests can be posted on the board within town. There will be plenty of story-based quests, as well as it's good for early game cooking, as that is a great way to boost stamina, and also it is good for gift giving, as each villager has their own personality and their own likes and dislikes. Tip number 3 is to always forage, fish, bug catch, dive, and dig, even if your bag is full. The reason being is items left on the ground will not despawn no matter how long you leave them there. This is great because you can always come back and run to pick them up once you have emptied your bag by donating items, selling them, or even gifting them. Tip number 4 is you can always drop items using the G key. However, you cannot drop any items when you are in bodies of water, and I do not recommend to drop items in the mines. The reason I don't recommend to do it is because anytime you go up, and if you go back down in the mines, the level will reset completely, so those items will be lost permanently. Tip number 5 is to take advantage of the free soup that is given at the inn every single day. The soup will boost 20 stamina, so I recommend going while your stamina is slightly down because you will not be able to take this with you, and it's a good way to just boost your stamina back up a little bit during early game. Tip number 6 is also a little bit of a reminder tip as well too, as it's something that I constantly forgot to do, which is jumping. So in Fields of Mistria, you can actually jump over fences, you can jump in and out of water sources, and you can jump over blank spots in the mines as well too to get over to trickier areas. Tip number 7 is to make sure that you are digging up all artifact spots that you see, even if they're not just at the digging site. You can actually find artifact spots throughout the town, and they just kind of look like small mounds. You do have to keep your eyes peeled for them, but as long as you have your pickaxe or your shovel on you, you will be able to dig these spots up. Tip number 8 is something I wish I knew because I was really stressed about it and I thought I had to either craft it and or buy one. And this is scarecrows. Unlike other farming simulators, you actually don't need scarecrows to keep crows away from your crops in early game. So I recommend not buying one, and I recommend not using any early game materials on crafting one as of early development. For tip number 9, you can actually go into any shop, into the museum, and any house or bedroom at any time of day. This also includes any day of the week. So you do not have to worry about not being able to buy any seeds, not being able to make any donations, and also not being able to give anything to any villagers. Tip 10 is something I definitely regretted doing, which was leveling up my crafting and using resources to build a chest, when you can just buy a chest from the general store for 250 tesserae. In early game, I think it's actually worth spending the tesserae rather than using the materials, as materials are heavily needed for most of the story-based quests. For tip number 11, don't forget to check Baylor's stand every once in a while. He will sometimes have forageable items or items that you might need to donate to the museum, and for a really low cost. Usually they're about 100 tesserae. Definitely check them out. Tip number 12 is that any and all items that need to be donated to the museum will have a small check mark box as well as a museum next to them. Any items that have been previously donated to the museum will be checked off as soon as you have given them. Tip number 13 is something that I definitely made a mistake with, and that is making sure you accept any and all quests posted within the town. Quests will never despawn until they are completed, so there is no time limit, and quests are a really good way to boost your town rank and overall town score, so I'd be sure to accept as many as possible and try to finish them as well. Tip 14 is to be sure that you are not only getting familiar with the map, but also checking the map regularly, as you can see where the villagers currently are. This is extremely helpful if you wanted to gift any of your favorite villagers, or if you are completing any quests, you can quickly see where their current location is in-game. For tip 15, if you are working on any larger scale quests, you can actually look and see what you have donated on the active quest details panel. For tip 16, make sure you are actively listening to what villagers are telling you. A lot of the time, they will tell you where certain resources are, and they will tell you where they can be found within the map itself. Townies will also sometimes tell you what other townies like, or they will tell you their own likes and loves. If they do tell you their own likes and loves, I would make sure to actually note this somewhere, because this will not be documented anywhere in the game until those items have been gifted to that character. Tip number 17, don't forget to go to the inn on Fridays. The inn is a great place to meet most of the characters, you can give loved items, you can finish any smaller quests that were posted on the board, and it's just a great way to know all of the villagers. They all have their own personalities, and they have their own friendships in the town, so it makes everything feel more alive. Tip number 18 is anytime you are finishing a story-based quest, you should be prepared to be teleported anywhere else on the map, and give yourself the appropriate time to get back to either where you were or to your farm. Because once the cutscene is over, you will be left in that specific area. Tip number 19 is there is a difference between pond fishing and river fishing. The pond can only be located to the east of town, so make sure that you are going to that area. Otherwise, any other fishing spot within the town aside from the ocean is considered a river, so when you are completing the museum, be sure to keep this in mind. Tip 20 is also a fishing-based related tip, which is ocean fishing. Unless you are fishing on the docks with your worn rod, it can be quite hard to get the fish to bite. So I actually recommend 2 spots on the map to make ocean fishing a little bit easier. Those spots are up by the digging site. As you can see, there is a small coastline. Those are all ocean fish. And there is coastline off of Hayden's farm. Any of those fish caught there will count as ocean fish as well. Tip number 21 is that you can cook, craft, and blacksmith within the town, and you do not need to have the resources on you in order to do so. One thing to keep in mind when you are going to do these actions is that it will take in-game time up. So be sure that you have the right amount of time that you need to cook, craft, and/or blacksmith for the day. Tip number 22 is to plan farming based mostly on cooking rather than selling. What I mean by this is in other farming games, artisan goods tend to make a lot of money when you are farming. However, as of early access, there is no artisan processing, so you're mostly just using food to cook. What I recommend is usually a lot of parsnips and potatoes, as well as any of the fruit trees that you can grow. Tip number 23 is related to all the types of ways you can pass out within the game. Unlike other farming sims, when you run out of stamina in Fields of Mistria, you actually will not pass out. Instead, your character will not perform the action until they have eaten something to regain energy. However, you can still pass out in 2 different ways. The first way is by not going to bed at 2 a.m. If you are not asleep on your farm by 2 a.m., the next morning you will get a message that says that you have overslept. You will wake up with a decreased amount of stamina as well as a decreased amount of health. The other way that you can pass out is by being slain by monsters in the mines. When you pass out this way, you do not lose any money or any of the resources you collected. However, you will wake up in the clinic. When you wake up in the clinic, your day will be ended short because you will then be transported to your house to end that night. That next day, you will wake up to the same "you have overslept" message, as well as a decreased amount of stamina and a decreased amount of health. Tip number 24 is regarding monsters on how they have their own attacks and weaknesses. Saplings will attack you by jumping at you. However, when they land, they will become stunned, which is the perfect time to attack. There are also clods, which will spit rocks at you. If you hit these back, it will cause massive damage to them. The Enchanterns are an electric type of monster that will shock you if they come into contact with you. However, they will run out of power, so you can strike then. There are also mushrooms, which won't attack you if you're facing. However, once you turn your back, they will begin approaching until they hit you with a gas. To strike mushrooms, I recommend turning your back to them and quickly turning around to strike. Tip number 25 is when you go mining, don't forget to bring your fishing rod as well as your bug net. You will need these tools as there are certain insects and fish that will only spawn in certain biomes and levels within the mines. These are useful for both the museum and for unlocking something much later in game, so be sure you hang on to any bugs and or fish that you may catch. Tip 26 is something I regretted doing, which is after finding a ladder within the levels of the mines, make sure that you are thoroughly checking the level, as there are frequent chests that can be found. There are also artifact spots which can be dug up. There are also foraging items, and like I said, any bugs or fish that could be caught. Tip 27 is knowing where you can find any of the edible forageable goods. Chickpeas can be found by the dig site. You can also harvest water chestnuts, even though they don't look like much. Be sure to always grab water chestnuts, as even when they're not cooked, they can restore 3 stamina each, and they're found in a lot of cooking recipes. You can find fennel and wild leeks to the east of town, as well as blueberries. And absolutely do not forget to pick the wild berries every day, as they come in super duper handy for eating in a tight spot as well as cooking. Tip number 28 is knowing that town rank and permanent stamina boosts are related. When your town rank has gone up to town rank number 10, you will get a permanent stamina increase. So be sure to complete any quests posted in town, any story-based quests, and donate items to the museum to boost your town rank quickly to get that stamina boost. Tip 29 is regarding Essence and some of the best skill perks to trade in for early game. Essence is a small purple orb that you can collect by doing everyday tasks, such as farming, mining, fishing, you know, the normal. You can go to the Dragon Shrine on your farm and trade in this essence for skill perks. The 2 skill perks I absolutely recommend to trade in first is for the Sunken Secrets, as dive spots will now have artifacts, and for the Time to Eat skill perk, which has all cook times reduced by 10 minutes, as cooking is essential for early game stamina. Tip number 30 is extremely important if you want multiple save files. As of early access, there are only 2 ways to save your game. That is either by sleeping at night, which has the bed icon, or saving by the book, which is on your nightstand. You can only have 1 save file when you sleep. So make sure, if you want multiple save files at the end of nights or the beginning of days, to save by the book and not just to have sleeping. It may override your other save files if you have only saved by sleeping and not by the book. So those are 30 tips and tricks that I wish I had known my first time playing Fields of Mistria. Are there any that you wish you knew your first time? Or are there any you think that other people should know? Please comment those down below. If you haven't already, be sure to give this video a thumbs up, and if you enjoyed this content or any of my other content, be sure to subscribe. Thanks so much for tuning in, and I hope to see you in the next one.